Warning, this content may be disturbing to some audiences. Subscribe, if you dare.
Go to high school over and over again, occasionally changing locations as to not raise suspicions over my immortality and seduce a girl that is hundreds of years my junior. Hey everybody, welcome to ANECDOSED. People ask Reddit. If you were to live forever, what would you do?
Number 1.
Commenter. Sad to say, but if I'm immortal, it will probably take me a lot longer to learn things since there's no shortage of time. Person B. You might not even want to take the time to learn anything, being that most of the information would go obsolete sooner or later. Person C. What I always wonder in this scenario is memory. What happens with memory? Would I really remember the last 10 million years in detail? Or would I effectively really only be able to keep the last few hundred years in focus? Person D. But honestly, over 100 plus years you live in history, and your understanding of the world will broaden just by bits and pieces. Assuming your memory does not decay in this scenario, you'd be the most valuable historian of all time. Person E. Look at it this way, though, there's nothing wrong with taking longer to learn things. In fact, by not having to rush, you can take the time to really learn things rather than get the gist and move on. VC, you got to get out there and get a job so you can have insurance and buy a house and blah blah blah. You could really take the time to learn. Spend a century in Japan, another sailing the Pacific. Run a crab boat for a century and then go to a school to fly jets. Do that for a quarter century. Eventually, I suppose you'd know everything about everything, but you'd know these things, instead of just making blind assumptions off of bad information or cultural biases. The real problem would be how quickly time would eventually move for you as you grew older. I would think that a year would start to feel like a day would be like seconds.
Number 2.
Commenter. I can't help but wonder how this would impact my emotional growth. Surely I'd see everyone I love age and die repeatedly. I wonder if I'd develop into some kind of unloving monster, or just get really good at loving and grieving. Person B. I honestly don't know if this would be an issue for me. It would be sad watching everyone die, but if you think about it, people would just end up being like pets. You get a dog with the knowledge that it will only live so long, and yet you love it completely, accepting the pain you'll eventually feel. As morbid as it is, I think people would just end up like pets. You'll only associate with them while understanding you'll have to eventually let go. Person C. I would imagine that since you exist on such a different level than everyone else, other people would start to seem like pets to you. Sure, you love your pets and it sucks when they die, but in time you can get a new one and love that one again. Person D. That would be the least of your problems. If you were truly immortal, eventually the sun would blow up, Earth would be consumed, and you'd float out into space, forever. Unable to die. No stimulation. Just you floating, and your thoughts, for all of eternity. Person E. Eventually you are the only living creature in the universe. Forget how sad watching family die could be, imagine watching the universe die. And then just sitting there, in emptiness. Forever. Shudder in disgust.
Number 3.
Commenter. I would stay off the grid, travel everywhere, read a lot and learn languages. Person B. I would build stuff. Large gardens, castles, trails. I would really try to make the world more beautiful.
Number 4.
Commenter. Offer NASA to put me in a rocket and shoot me anywhere they want. As long as I can keep busy on said rocket and can return with what I discovered, I would be the perfect astronaut. What, it's 200 light years away? No biggie, I'll pack a few books. Person B. God damn, that would be heaven for me, just floating through space, listening to music and reading. And if Earth somehow had ended, I wouldn't be too upset, everybody I know would have been dead a long time at that point anyway. And one of the things that bugs me the most about being mortal is I'll never get to find out what happens to the human race. I'll never know how our big, exciting and beautiful story ends. It's like having someone rip a unique book you've almost finished out of your hands and burn it. Person C. I think you're greatly underestimating the mental toll this will have on you. There are studies on the effects of solitary confinement, and for extended periods of time the results are catastrophic. Deprived of all human contact, floating alone in space. You'd go insane within the first year. Person D. The space exploration part would be perfectly suited for someone who doesn't age, cannot be injured and doesn't eat or breathe. It would shave off tremendous costs for space travel. Just send that one guy with materials and keep in contact for more instructions. Since he has time, he can build that moon base by himself, piece by piece, until it is safe to house normal people.
Number 5.
Well, eventually the world will be destroyed and all matter and energy in the universe will decay into barely anything, so before that happens I would like to learn everything I could about the fundamental properties of the universe to try and prevent this. If not, I guess floating around in space being the only thing that hasn't decayed into nearly nothing and slowly descending into insanity would be cool too.
Number 6.
Commenter. Live until the point in which Earth has perfected time travel, then use it to visit my loved ones in the past. Over and over. Person B. Earth never perfected time travel, ever. Humanity died out before we figured out how to reverse time. Source: the lack of time travelers coming back to tell us that they perfected time travel.
Number 7.
Step 1, work like a normal person, go to school, all of the jazz. Step 2, once I've worked until retirement age and paid off my loans or whatever, go back to school for another profession. Step 3, work through to another retirement age. Step 4, by this time I've been recognized as the oldest person ever. Start accruing fame and money via this route. It will only get more intense the older I get. Step 5, by using the contacts and breaks from being pseudo-famous for my age, I will continue working on my education. At this point focusing on psychology, philosophy, ethics, religious studies, etc. Step 6, after about 3 to 4 generations of this kind of pattern and watching how human life generally plays out, I would not only be the world's oldest person, but likely the most wise. I would be known throughout the world and my advice would be highly prized, thus filling my coffers even further as I whore myself out to world powers. Step 7, while whoring myself out to world powers, I am subtly manipulating them all using my wisdom and traditional schooling. If anyone resists, I outlive them. I have also learned incredible patience. Step 8, through peaceful means, eventually become ruler of the world.
Number 8.
Commenter. That depends on whether I'm immortal, just not decaying due to age, or indestructible, truly impossible to kill. I'll assume the former. Be very careful. I'd hate to have to spend 50 million years in silence because I didn't wear earplugs to the firing range, or bedridden because I fell into a wheat thresher. Invest. I'm planning 50 million years of adventures. I'm going to need funds. Collect antiques. Good enough for Highlander, good enough for me. Learn stuff. I'd pick up a few languages, learn more about science and engineering. Mostly for my own enlightenment, but also because my big plan involves eventually leaving the planet. Create a sustainable and lasting foundation dedicated to exploring space. I believe that this is one of the most important things that the human race can do, but that we don't do it because it almost certainly requires more than a single human lifetime to accomplish, and we don't seem to be very good at achieving goals which we probably won't live to see. Person B. Invest. I'm planning 50 million years of adventures. I'm going to need funds. My thoughts on this is with the ability to live forever, one could create a much higher risk and more long-term portfolio. Sure, you'll want to have a couple of good stable investments, but these can be amortized in property and businesses, while your financial growth could come from riskier investments. Since you'd be living forever, you're less worried about having a 10-year ROI. That up-and-coming startup that's showcasing new tech that people tend to shy away from, you can invest in knowing that it might take them 20+ years to develop a working, marketable product. If you were to invest wisely and have a very diverse portfolio, you could probably go so far as to have the R&D costs for expensive future tech paid for from your profits of other businesses, a self-enforced grant system if you will. Using renewable energy as an example, the cost of solar power, battery tech, and electric vehicles are currently too much to be cost competitive against gasoline/diesel and other forms of energy production/storage/usage, although it's getting better. Taking some of your profits you get from another investment, you could cover some/all the R&D and perhaps production costs out of your pocket to make the products more cost competitive. Going back to the first paragraph, it would be a situation where it's money losing in the typical ROI timescale, high risk, but you'd be able to see your ROI cover the span of several decades. And this doesn't account for the fact that grants spur innovation, so that 50+ your ROI could turn into 30 years or less. Having a well-off philanthropist that lives forever could be the greatest asset to humanity. Person C would have to spend the first 5 or 10 years acquiring funds, save like crazy. Open up a living trust or some way to not have your name directly tied to the trading. Reason being, as you get older, all of your identification will look fake. For instance, you will be 100 years old and look 25. You will need to live a cash-only life. Traveling may be difficult due to age and the disparity between your image and your credentials. To make this truly hassle-free, you will need some help, an attorney and some connections to counterfeit documentation. Taxes might be a hurdle, but the trust and attorney might get you around that. I'm sure there are other things I'm missing. It's important to stay clear of the law as it will cause issues. This will take an insane amount of planning. But if Wolverine can do it, anything is possible. Person D. 5. Create a sustainable and lasting foundation dedicated to exploring space. Couldn't agree more. Most people are too short-sighted to realize that, unless we manage to develop interstellar travel, humankind has a finite existence. It might be far off, but it's incredible to think that 5 years from now, one of two enormous events will have occurred. 1. Humans and all other life in this solar system will cease to exist, or 2. Humans will have developed interstellar space travel.
Number 9.
Staying the same age and immortal would make one kind of a god. Imagine over several generations you would be known as the person that is immortal. You could teach and guide humanity for a few centuries, but then afterward the new generations would see you as some kind of god. I would lay low and hide, but would join normal life for a few years at a time to guide and teach humanity. I would love to see where we humans can get to. Will we reach the stars? Will we venture outside of our galaxy and see other planets, and possibly meet other beings? I would love to see the end of the universe. Will it come back to a single point and then another Big Bang starts the cycle again? Will I be able to survive a Big Bang, or is my immortality limited to this universe?
Number 10.
Go to high school over and over again, occasionally changing locations as to not raise suspicions over my immortality, and seduce an underage girl that is hundreds of years my junior.
Number 11.
If I can't ever die and time is truly infinite, then eventually I would do everything.
Number 12.
I would live out my life normally until my wife dies. After that, I would cut any other social ties and pursue education and travel. Education, I would probably focus on chemistry, biology, and physics. Chemistry and biology I have always enjoyed, and chemistry was one of my favorite subjects. Physics just seems interesting. When I was not actively studying, I would travel to places I had not been to. Preferably on foot, but driving would be adequate when possible. I would probably disappear for a few months at a time to go off on my own, but I would come back so as to continue to learn. I would set out to create technologies that would solve problems for humanity, cure diseases, or invent new materials that could be useful. Ultimately, I think the best thing I could work on would be finding means of alternative energy that is dependent on easily sustainable reactions, and technologies that relate to the transfer of data, or even locomotion. If I must live forever, that would be a good way to do it.
Number 13.
I would become a polygamist. PC way of saying I would be a whore. Many wives, PC way of saying any woman willing to have me, equals many children. I would, I estimate, be the father of humanity in about 600 years. Every person on the face of the planet would be my child. My children would do my bidding. I would be ruler of the world through mass effing. I would be essentially a god. Downside to all this is that at some point I would have to have sex with my own children. On the other hand, maybe I would just make it my life mission to eat a donut at every Dunkin' Donuts on Earth. Make sure to share your personal story in the comments below and have the opportunity to be featured in a future video. Also, if you like these topics, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button to continue seeing more content like this every day. See you next time.